Today's video is about redemption and not giving up on old hardware.
Excellent!
The Enermax Liquitech TR42 all-in-one liquid CPU cooler has a massive contact plate made just for Threadripper and is rated for 500 watts of heat dissipation. High-pressure PWM fans mount to rubber channels on the radiator to absorb vibration, and the sexy logo and edge lighting on the block is addressable for syncing with your motherboard. It comes with an RGB control box too, so click the sponsor link in the description for more.
I had almost given up on this monitor here. This is my first 4K monitor. It's from Honor Price. You can't actually buy this particular model anymore, but it served me well. And although I don't use it as a primary monitor, it's been a floater. And recently I got a really cool new Gigabyte RTX 2080 Ti, and I went to test it out, and I realized that this monitor wasn't working anymore. The problem was with the power input in the back, and I had known this was going out for a while because when the plug would be plugged in and it would wiggle, it would sometimes turn off and the power would be weird sometimes, and sometimes I'd have to unplug it and plug it back in. I've had this monitor for 4 years, so over time this plug has worn out and finally gave out on me just a few days back. So it's the weekend after Black Friday, and I wasn't even planning on making a video on this today. I was actually on the verge of buying a new 4K monitor, but then I was like, wait, no, I know where the point of failure is on this monitor. I should really give it a shot and just take it apart and see what can be done. So I'm gonna walk you back through that because I think I've already fixed it, but I can show you what was wrong. Tools I'm working with today are my iFixit kit. I'll put a link to this in the description. It's not sponsored or anything, but this is the kit that I got during Scrapyard Wars. It's got my name on it. Screwdrivers, of course, and then I did have to bust out the soldering iron, soldering wick, and I'm using lead-free solder because that's all I have. Now, I'm not at all intending this to be a tutorial or anything. I just wanted to show you guys what I did, and again, this is a 4-year-old monitor. It's not under warranty or anything, so if it wasn't going to work, I was just going to have to send it to a recycling place or something like that. So a couple sticking points to get past, and one was getting the actual housing undone. For that, I had to figure out where the screws are. There's 3 across here. There's a few smaller ones across here. There's a couple more in the corners that hold on the plate that goes across the front with the Monoprice logo on it. After getting those all up, I can sort of start prying along the edge and get this side up, but the top is still very much stuck in place. So for that, I used a few spudgers from my iFixit kit to sort of work in along the edge, push it slowly and firmly along this edge here, and that would get the tabs that are holding the top of the monitor back piece in place to release. Of course, once you get the panel separated from the back piece, you want to be very careful because there's going to be several wires in there that are connecting them, so don't just go pulling it off. Inspect which wires are in there first, and in particular, there is a flat ribbon cable that goes along the back here that was taped down, which I had to untape as best I could. So all it took was removing 4 screws to get the main motherboard removed, and I'm trying to leave as many of these cables plugged in as possible so I don't have to remember where to plug stuff back in, just to manipulate it around and get a better look at what's going on. So here's the power plug, and I have already fixed it, like I said, but basically the problem was it was wobbling back and forth. It's got a couple connections on the side here, and then there's a wire going down there in the back that actually goes and connects to the PCB itself. And because that solder point was the main thing that was holding this on, or whenever there's pressure put on this plug, eventually over time it wore out and broke. So all I had to do was get my soldering iron, get a bit of solder, heat that up, and resolder that joint. I'm not the best with the soldering iron, so I didn't record that, but you know, blah 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 like that. I actually ended up using a little bit too much solder, so I had to use my solder wick to pull some of it off of there, but I ended up with a pretty good connection there, and this is much more stable. And with that joint resoldered, it was just a matter of putting everything back together as best as I could remember. And I also want to point out that I already did sort of a loose fitting together of everything so that I could just get the power plug back in to make sure that we had power again. Now I'm going to be putting everything all the way back together. One more quick test before I put the stand back on. Oh, yeah, it was all wobbly before. It's much more stable now. Yay, we have a power LED. One final test. Yay! So there you go, guys. This video has been sort of short and off the cuff, so I hope you've enjoyed it. And just a message again, if you have old electronics that have stopped working, maybe take them apart first before you decide to throw them in the recycling bin and see if there's something you can do to get them functional again, because I will definitely be getting more usage out of this. One last thing I wanted to share, and that is why I am so in need of a 4K monitor. I mean, testing a 2080 Ti, of course, is a good reason for that, but don't I have other 4K monitors? Kind of, yeah. But not out here in the garage where I have the main streaming and capture system. This is a 2560 by 1440. That's a 2560 by 1440. That is a 1440 widescreen. Then here in the computer room, I have two 4K monitors, but they are both mounted to my desk, so that is very challenging to move. I was gonna have the only option of borrowing my wife's 4K monitor, but that's 43 inches, and it looks like she's using it. So that's not an option either. So for that reason, I'm very glad that this fix was successful, because I didn't want to have to go out and buy another 4K monitor, and this one's a lot easier to bring in there, connect up to the 4K capture system, so I can test something like a 2080 Ti and get the on-screen stats and everything like that. But one last thing before I go, I wanted to mention, just to be clear, that my wife works for Monoprice. This monitor isn't even for sale anymore or anything like that, so I'm not trying to sell it or anything. I will post a link to the iFixit kit in the video description down below, and maybe my soldering iron too, because that was pretty useful for this little project. That's all for this video though, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Hit the thumbs up button if you enjoyed it. We'll see you next time.